What's going on, guys? Greg here, and you are tuned into the December 2023 episode of The Dot. The Grammys are bullshit 2K23 edition. We did this last year. I had a lot of fun with it. Essentially, this is just a year roundup of what we saw in music for the year of 2023, and we all know the Grammys have some very questionable takes when it comes to the awards they give out. So this is our version of giving out yearly awards. We'll give out awards like Surprise Bop of the Year, the Shadow Award, which is the artist that kind of followed you around with features all year, the Breakout Artist, the Best New Artist, and this year we're gonna run down the top 20 albums of the year. If you guys remember last year, I would do that on a quarterly basis, give my top 20 albums. Didn't do that this year to give more time to highlight the artists throughout the year. I figured we'll do a roundup this month on this episode for the top 20 albums of the year. Last year we did something I really liked as well, where I asked artists and listeners to send in their favorite songs or new artists that they found this past year. I didn't have time to do that this month. I kind of had some unexpected things come up in the beginning of the month, and before I knew it, it was December 16th and I hadn't sent out any requests for people to send over their favorite new songs and artists. So we'll start this episode with a call in. This is kind of a rollover from last month, but an artist I definitely wanted to fit in and give the time. This is the artist Habe, and for those of you who have been listening for a long time, we first had Habe on The Dot in November 2020. We had him on for a great interview when he just released his single I'll Still Call, which is still his top single to date on streaming services. And Habe released his debut album in November called Here Look, and we are going to check out the song off that debut album called Here We Go Again. So we're going to start off this episode with a call in from Habe. We'll take a listen to that new song, definitely check out that debut album, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about the overall year and what we saw through the trends and the top artists and music, and then we'll get into our superlatives and the top 20 albums of the year. So let's get rolling here. This is Habe with his song Here We Go Again off his debut album that came out last month called Here Look.
Hi, this is Habe, and thank you for having me on The Dot. You'll be listening to a song of mine called Here We Go Again, off of my debut album. It's about feeling insecure when starting something new, in this case, a relationship, and sort of exploring the feelings of doubt and what that means and whether it can be a good thing or a bad thing. So yeah, I hope you enjoy it. Thank you guys for listening.
Habe there with the song Here We Go Again off the debut album Here Look. I've always been really impressed with the way that Habe puts together his songs, everything from production to just the sonic value that he brings on a track. So really excited to get that debut album from Habe and continue to follow him as his career progresses. And shout out to Habe for calling in and telling us about that song. All right, guys, so let's get to our Grammys, our bullshit 2K23 portion of the podcast. We did this last year. Before I dive into my takes of some of the superlatives in 2023, let's look at what the world thought. And I really like just to go to Spotify at this point and look at, everyone had their own Spotify Wrapped. There's an overall Spotify Wrap where you can look at who everyone was listening to, who the most popular artists were, and who do you think was number one? I'll give you a second to think about it and take a guess, and I will spoil it right now. Of course, it was Taylor Swift, number one for most streamed artist globally, followed by Bad Bunny, The Weeknd, and Drake. So, usual suspects up top for the yearly Spotify streams. When it comes to the most streamed songs this year, this was a little more interesting. Flowers by Miley Cyrus was number one. Kill Bill by SZA was number two. As It Was, another year for As It Was at the very top by Harry Styles. Interesting to see the top songs. And then the most streamed albums globally were, the top one was a Bad Bunny album. Midnights by Taylor Swift was number two. SOS by SZA was number three. And then Starboy by The Weeknd was number four. So again, no shocking artists there in the top. Last year, I was really impressed seeing Glass Animals in the top with their song Heat Wave for the top songs, but really nothing like that this year. And then looking at the Billboard Hot 100 to see who finished the year at the top. Last year, it was SZA who finished the year at the top of the Billboard Hot 100. This year, it is Morgan Wallen, followed by Luke Combs, followed by Olivia Rodrigo. So again, not huge surprises when you were keeping tabs on the Hot 100 throughout the year. Country solidified its spot at the very top in 2023. So that brings us to our first superlative of the year, and that's going to be surprise bop of the year. And this award is going to go to a song that we just didn't see coming, right? It might be from an artist that doesn't normally give you big bops, or an artist that you might not have really heard of this year that made an impact with a specific song. I do take quality into this, right? I'm not just going to look at the top stream songs and say this was a bop. No, that I have to like the songs as well. These are songs that ended up pretty high when it comes to my favorite songs of the year. And a reminder, Central C won this award last year with the song Doja, and I hope you can remember that one. Look it up if you don't. So I'm going to start with an honorable mention before I get into the official nominees, and that honorable mention is actor Ryan Gosling, who had the song I'm Just Ken off the Barbie movie. Got 12 million streams on YouTube. Was actually a pretty decent song. So who saw that one coming, right? That could definitely qualify as a surprise bop this year. I'm not going to put it in the official nominees, but shout out to Ryan Gosling for that. So the very first official nominee is going to be from a legendary group with a legendary artist. That's Gorillaz, who teamed up with Stevie Nicks to give us the song Oil back in February, which is a single off the Gorillaz album that we got this past year. Again, who saw these two teaming up in 2023 to give us an absolute banger of a song? And it was incredible to hear how well the vocals of Damon Albarn and Stevie Nicks worked together on this track. Check it out.
Interlocking cluster bombs, like drum and bass I thought. Close the wells of poison, fill them up with love. I was on my own there.
2.6 million views for that song on YouTube. Love hearing Stevie Nicks, love hearing Gorillaz, love Damon Albarn so much that I'm going to give him another nominee for Surprise Bop of the Year. But this is with his other group, Blur, who released a semi-surprise album for us this past year. First album in a very long time. And Blur came back like they never left and gave us some really great music. I think this definitely qualifies given that Blur has not given us music in so long. So in 2023, how about Blur with the single off their album called The Narcissist?
I'm a shining light in your eyes. You probably shine it back on me, but I won't fall this time. With Godspeed, I heed the signs.
2.4 million views on YouTube for the song The Narcissist from Blur. Really great to hear new music from them. All right, let's go to an artist that got a little bit overlooked for our next nominee. This is the artist Zayn, who was part of One Direction. A lot of people thought when One Direction split up that him and not Harry Styles was gonna become the most popular artist from that group. They were obviously wrong about that. Harry Styles is by far the most popular, and it's very well deserved with the quality of music. And Zayn's quality of music has been shaky, which is why I want to put his single in as a nomination here, Love Like This, that he gave us in July. I thought this was a really great track by Zayn and shows what he's capable of.
I guess there's love like this. Usually I never wanna jump like this, but I think I wanna dump my chips, cause I cannot go back. I guess there's faith like this. Give you everything and you can skate like this, but I think I gotta take that risk, cause I cannot go back. And I'm loving what you say, what you say, what you say when you're on my line. If I never make it back, make it back, make it back from the chase, I'm fine.
16 million views on YouTube there. That's the song Love Like This from Zayn, who was once part of One Direction. When you listen to that song, I recommend you listen to that entire song. The intro to the song really sets the vibe, and I think Zayn did a really good job of that. And if he can keep that ominous vibe with his strong vocals, I think he's able to step back into stardom. He already has the following to do so. That leaves us with 2 nominations left. This one was a surprise because it was off a soundtrack for a movie, and the movie was the Spider-Man Spider-Verse movie, where Metro Boomin did the entire soundtrack to that movie. It was actually a really great soundtrack, held up as one of the better albums I heard all year. And this song had A$AP Rocky and Rosie on. It's called Am I Dreaming? And I think it falls into the surprise bop of the year, not because it's surprising that like Metro Boomin and A$AP Rocky got together and put together a bop of a track, but just this song coming together and being a lead single off one of the biggest movies of the year, and it really holding up of not just this big catchy track, but something that was actually a really good song through and through. The entire track is really good with a really nice hook, and I think it really set the stage well for the Spider-Man movie. So check it out. This is Metro Boomin, A$AP Rocky, and Rosie with the song Am I Dreaming?
I'm still fine. I don't feel I lost. Am I dreaming? It's been more like us. Got me feeling like it's all too much. I feel beaten, but I can't give up.
Waking up, feeling like the thankful one. Count up my ones, lacing up my favorite ones. One of a kind, one of one, the only one. Got one shot.
21 million views on YouTube for that song, by far the most of all the nominees. And a few things stuck out to me about that song from what we just heard from that snippet of that song, being on point, really telling the story about the movie. You know, is there more like us? Am I dreaming? And then another thing that sticks out to me, and I mean this as a compliment, is like A$AP Rocky starts rapping and it literally sounds like vintage Kanye back in the day. I mean, that sounds like he came in on like a Kanye verse when Kanye was back on like his graduation or college dropout days. So that was was really, really cool to hear. So great song there, but the last nominee here and the winner for Surprise Bop of the Year is going to go to the song Scientists and Engineers from Killer Mike, Andre 3000, Future, and Aaron Allen Rose. And I don't know how much I need to explain why this is so surprising, but first of all, Killer Mike's such a great artist. You don't normally get like huge hits from him. The other thing is getting Andre 3000 to give you a verse on a song is not easy these days. He was going to come out with an album. I thought when I heard he was dropping an album, like, oh, this is definitely going to be album of the year. He just played flute on it the whole time, which, you know, more to him. Another surprise for me personally is that Future is involved with any song that I'm giving, you know, props to. I'm not a big Future fan. So I think all three of those things coming together is why this song here is my surprise bop of the year. And I'm still putting together the top songs of 2023. I would be surprised if this isn't number one. It's going to be a hard one to knock off. So congratulations to Killer Mike. Great album too. We'll talk about that album in the countdown. Andre 3000 always comes through. Future really nailed the chorus on this song and just a great song overall. So Killer Mike with Scientists and Engineers is our 2023 bop of the
Do summers
year.
ever forget? Put your must feel like a kid. Cucumber will make a drip. You jump on and hit a split. Hookers don't really do shit. You get lantern in it, bitch. Rebelling is like an itch. Oh,
I'ma live forever.
Yeah, diamond shaped like a teardrop. I got the streets in the head like fly, just like a skydiver. Spill, I can get manslaughter. Suicide door on the Range Rover. Depending on the time I was laying up, I could have been wearing an animal. Pull up and get at you in the Lambo. When it gets odd, think to get gamble.
So let's move on to the next superlative, which is Shadow Award, the Shadow of the Year. And this goes to the artist that just keeps popping up on features. You really can't get rid of them. They follow you around like a shadow. Last year, it was 21 Savage. I wasn't a big 21 Savage fan, but last year, everywhere I looked, 21 Savage was showing up on tracks. He's continued to do that, by the way. But I'm way more excited to talk about the winner of this year's Shadow Award, and that's J. Cole. In 2023, we didn't get any albums from J. Cole, but my God, was he showing up on features and supplying great verses on features for so many different artists. Summer Walker, BTS he hopped on a feature with, J-Hope, Lil Durk, and All My Life, one of the best songs of the year. Such a catchy verse right into the hook. Check that out right here.
Durk told me he been on some positive shit, yeah. Lately I just wanna show up and body some shit, yeah. Always been a little mathematician. Lately this cash I'm getting got me losing count of these bags. I've been moving too fast. Hard times don't last. Remember when cops are rats talking out my ass? Boy, you ain't shit but a bitch with a badge. All my life they been trying to keep me down.
J. Cole also was on a song with Gucci Mane, Burna Boy, and then J. Cole rounded it all out by being on Drake's new album, not only the initial release, but then he was on another song with Drake where they went kind of back to back on the song Evil Ways on the B-side of Drake's For All the Dogs. So really excited to have J. Cole be the Shadow of the Year for 2023. And that brings us to our next award here, which is Breakout Artist of the Year. Now, last year, it was a toss-up for me between Fred again and Zach Bryan. I went with Zach Bryan, and Zach Bryan just went on to become one of the most popular artists right now. Here in Philadelphia, he sold out Lincoln Financial Field back-to-back days multiple times, so he's an absolute superstar at this point. So this year, there were some artists that came to mind. It was a little bit of a trickier one this year. It wasn't two obvious choices for me like last year. Think of people like Ice Spice and Sexy Red, who really had quite a come up. They bubbled up to the top this year. More on the industry plant side. I wasn't a huge fan of either of their music. Tate McRae comes to mind. Now, her album was late in the year. I was expecting a little more from her album, I'm not gonna lie, but I think she did enough to take that next step to kind of get to Dua Lipa-esque levels. I think she's very much capable of that, has the image. She used to be a dancer and can come out with some great music videos. I'm sure her live performance is awesome with her being a dancer. But when I really delved into it, the breakout artist became pretty obvious. And the breakout artist for 2023 was Noah Kahan. And there's a lot of reasons it was Noah Kahan. This thing started happening where Noah Kahan released this album with the big single Stick Season, right? Amazing song. That's such a hit song for him. But then after he released the album, he started re-releasing singles with features on them. And not just any features from Post Malone, features from Casey Musgraves, features from Hozier, features from Gracie Abrams. Then you turn around and Olivia Rodrigo's covering Stick Season. I see a festival lineup, a notable festival lineup, Osheaga in Montreal. Who's the fucking headliner of that festival? Noah Kahan headlining a major festival. So I think when I started to put all that together, it was pretty clear that Noah Kahan is the obvious choice. Really happy for him. I think it's a little more difficult in his genre to really break out than it is, for people like Ice Spice, Sexy Red, and Tate McRae, meaning that they're all in hip hop and pop, some of the more popular genres, where Noah Kahan's really folk. And he's from Vermont. I swear to God, that whole, you should move to Vermont thing that Spotify did, that's like your area of choice, that was because of him. I swear to God, that was because of him. So the last superlative I'm going to do on the show this year is going to be Best New Artist. Now, the artist PROM won that last year. The runner-up was Moon Panda. A lot of really great nominees when it comes to Best New Artist. I'm not going to take the time to peek into their songs like I did for Surprise Bop of the Year. Another thing before diving into this, Best New Artist, very simple for me. The Best New Artist released their debut album in the calendar year. Right? We're not doing this Grammy, right? Grammys are bullshit, right? We're not doing the thing where they're on their fourth album and somehow winning Best New Artist. No. The Best New Artist had to release their debut album in 2023. A lot of great artists we featured on the dot this past year, right? Bleach Lab released a really great new album for us this year. Juno Rucker had an amazing debut LP. Paper Idol, who we featured for the second time on the dot this year, finally released his debut album. That was great. Groupthink, really big fan of Groupthink. He released his debut. It wasn't really called an album, so kind of going to disqualify him from this award. Other bands that stuck out to me, Zebra, they're spelled 7 EBRA. They released a great new album. Alex Sucks, Girl and Girl, The Royston Club all come to mind for artists or bands that released their debuts that really stuck out to me. But when I put them all together, it came down to 3 options that really rose to the top. 2 solo female artists and a duo electronic group. So third is going to be Renee Rapp, who released a couple projects this past year. She released music like she's been doing it her entire career, came out with some really big songs, showed that she's capable of quickly moving up the pop list to become one of the top pop artists. So I was really happy to hear her success with her new albums this year. Number 2 was Jessie Murph. Incredible voice from Jessie Murph. I loved the singles that she was coming out with, and then the album was finally released, and that lived up to the hype. Instead of number 2, I really want to put her as like 1B. Check out the vocals on this song that she released, How Could You, which was a single off the album she released this year.
You said you were sober, so I let you come over. You always pull me closer, but your words fucked me over. I kept on denying, so you kept on trying. You went too far for closure, too far for me over. I could just
love me some Jessie Murph, but my 1A for Best New Artist is this electronic duo from Wales called Overmono. They started releasing these infectious singles, kind of sprinkled here and there. And I was like, who the hell are these guys? I'm loving the sound that they're coming out. It's such a good like club sound, and it's perfectly mixed. I think there's very few DJs or electronic artists you can say like their sound not too crazy or too big and not too minimalistic, like that gets you up and moving, but it's also not overbearing to listen to. And I think they tiptoed that line well with all their music, and they released an album for us in 2023. Check out this song, So You Know. You can kind of get the vibe that I'm talking about. Okay, now I would like to quickly go through my top albums of the year. In the beginning of the episode, I said I'll do my top 20 since we're already around 25 minutes into the episode. I'm just going to do my top 10. I'll really dive into the top 5. I'll release the full top 20 on Instagram, and I'll follow that up with a playlist of all my favorite albums of the year. But quickly, just listing off, not giving a lot of detail, just listing off 10 to 6. Number 10, Del Watergap with his album I Miss You Already, plus I Haven't Left Yet. Number 9, Rami from the XX with her album Mid-Air. Number 8, No Name with her album Sundial. Number 7, Dominic Fike with his album Sunburn. Number 6, LP Giobbi with her album Light Places. And that brings us to number 5. Number 5 is the abstract hip hop project from Billy Woods and Kenny Segal called Maps that came out in the beginning of May for us. Billy Woods is a New York rapper. He has a lot of work out right now, and he is really a mind-bending lyricist when you listen to what he's able to put down on an album. Very conscious rap. It's almost like poetry. And if you listen to Anthony Fontano and the way he reviews Billy Woods, he always says that he borders on spoken word, and it's true. And this abstract hip hop is something that is a little bit of an earworm, and not something that someone who doesn't listen too deeply into hip hop might not be too familiar with this genre. And it got an 8.9 on Pitchfork. It was very well received by the public and critically. And we're going to peek into the song Baby Steps off this album with Elucid and Benjamin Booker. And this will give you a bit of an idea of Billy Woods' style. And again, great album. Number 5, Billy Woods and Kenny Segal with their album Maps.
I'm not going to be able to do it. I actually took a $300 Uber to a show and sleep in the back like Future might as well be a Maybach. Showed up with nothing but a computer, let's go. Glowed up looking like she covered in gold dust, must not have re-up to Lex Pro. I don't check in, but if you feel a disturbance in the force, you already know. Something wicked in the wind, just picture me sitting with
such a unique style of rapping there, Billy Woods with producer Kenny Segal, and you need to check out that entire album. It's a whole project just like that you never see what's coming around the next turn. Let's go to an artist that a lot of people have seen, whether it's out on billboards or on commercials. The music is hard to escape, and that's Olivia Rodrigo, who comes in at number 4 with her sophomore album Guts. It's really interesting to see how Olivia Rodrigo has transcended this Disney star image to create and release some really quality pop music, whether it's alternative pop, soft pop, pop rock. She's really able to nail not just the sound of the songs, but lyrically she's been fantastic. Going back to her debut album Sour, it was top to bottom a great album, and Guts, I could argue she got even better. Her voice sounds better on this sophomore album, which is interesting because her voice sounded great on her debut album. This album, Guts, came out on September 8th, topped the charts in 14 different countries. 12 of the songs hit the top 40, and Vampire was the lead single. I think it really set the tone for what we were going to see on this album. It got an 8 on Pitchfork. Pitchfork called it biting and charismatic, the entire album, which I love. We'll peek into the song Get Him Back, which I'm sure we've all heard, whether we listen to it intentionally or unintentionally. But Olivia Rodrigo, I have no shame in saying that she definitely had one of the best albums of the year, and she comes in at number 4 with her album Guts. So the fifth best album was from an underground hip hop artist giving us some abstract rap. The fourth album was from a boating superstar giving us some big pop music. This third album is going to be a familiar name because we already talked about them. This is the duo, the brothers actually from Wales, Over Mono, who gave us their debut LP Good Lies this past year, and talked about it before, right? This is kind of like breakbeat 90s rave club music. I love the samples of R&B that they pull in to their track. It was really interesting to hear the singles and songs from EPs that they've given us in the past. Those were the big songs on the album. So we were familiar with the big songs, but I really like how they filled it in. You know, I think if you wanted to be critical, the rest of the album wasn't as big as the singles were, but I think they really complemented those big songs well. And I think they were able to really put together a coherent album and tell a little bit of a story through the subtle experimentation. That's what Pitchfork says, which I love it. Subtle experimentation throughout the album. Pitchfork gave it a 7.7. And we are going to check out one more song off that album. Let's peek into the song Is You. Again, Over Mono, the third best album of 2023 with their debut album, Good Lies.
Smile, follow me. You next to me, follow me. You like to me, you smile, follow me. You like to be, follow me. You like to me, you smile, follow me. You next to me, follow me. You like to me.
So for the second best album of the year, let's go to rapper turned psych rock artist Lil Yachty, who released his album Let's Start Here back in the beginning of the year. And this was a head turner of an album just because Lil Yachty kind of had an image going into the release of this album. I mean, he was Lil Boat, you know, he was a rapper, he used a lot of heavy auto-tune, and then he releases this album and everyone was like, what the hell is this? Because he turned completely to this psychedelic based rock infused rap, which played pretty well, surprisingly well, I would say. It was a really fun listen, and a lot of critics have said this about Yachty, and I think it's very true. Credit to him for trying something completely different and spicing things up, you know? And Lil Yachty has gone on after that to really be very outspoken about the state of hip hop and how it lacks this type of creativity, which he's spot on about. So I'm all for the Yachty turn to psych rock. I loved the album, and I think he gets a lot of credit. It was a really good album, not taking anything away from the quality of the album, but I think he landed this high on the list just because he deserves a lot of credit for doing what he did. And he collabed with the right people to do it. He collabed with Magdalena Bay, Ben from MGMT, Mac DeMarco, Nick Hakim. He worked with producers who worked with artists that were working in the psych rock realm. So he did the right thing. He worked with the right people, and he had a really positive outcome from that. My favorite comment says, whoever gave Lil Yachty psychedelics, thank you. And I echo that. So let's check out the song Running Out of Time, my favorite track off of that album. Lil Yachty comes in at number 2, the second best album of the year with his album Let's Start Here.
Watch it, girl. Don't ever tell me lies. I said, watch, baby. You're never running out of time. What you may never know, it's more than you will see.
Now that brings us to the number 1 album of 2023. And I have to say, before releasing who this is, this was definitely a much more difficult year than in years past to come up with an order of top albums. I don't think there was an obvious top album this year. And even 1 through about 30, even more than that, of the albums when I did the ranking, I think you could have argued were one of the best albums of the year. So I think there was a lot of parity this year, and I think it was really hard to decipher for who was the actual artist who came out with the best project this year, but I landed on Killer Mike with his album Michael at number 1. There was a lot of pros and cons that went into, why I thought this would be number 1, but the pros definitely outweighed the cons. The lyricism on this album is unmatched and something that we're just not used to hearing in the rap world anymore. It's very intentional, and Killer Mike has a message. Whether you agree with it or not, Killer Mike definitely has a message on this album. He has some really high highs, like the song Motherless and Scientists and Astronauts that we peeked into earlier in the episode. And Killer Mike is not the same Killer Mike that gave us rap music, 11 years ago. This is his first solo project in 11 years. And I think I can't reiterate enough that even though he does lean politically in a place where a lot of people aren't comfortable with, the album as a whole came through as a really well thought out album that had great rhymes, great beats, great features like Andre 3000, right? And again, it was just very well put together. It was clean. It had hits. It was a storytelling album. It delivered a message. And I think it did everything that hip hop albums should do. This is the type of hip hop music that started hip hop, right? This is the type of hip hop music that grew and allowed a lot of people to fall in love with hip hop. And I think all in all, that's why I decided to Killer Mike with the album Michael as the best album of the year. We listened to a little bit of a Killer Mike song earlier in the episode, so I won't peek into another song off this. Like I said, I'm going to release my top 20 on my Instagram. I know we only kind of brushed through 10 to 1 today on the podcast, as well as go through the superlatives. Special shout out to Habe, who called in the beginning of the podcast to listen to his new song, Here We Go Again. And very excited for 2024. We've already had some hints at big releases next year. I think because this year we didn't have any of those headliner-esque album releases that kind of made it into the top albums of the year, should have a heavy lean to the top next year with album releases. I'm going to do 150 songs this year, not the best 300 songs of the year. I'll do the top 150 songs of the year. Those will be released via Instagram from January 1st all the way to January 15th, 10 songs at a time. Thank you guys so much for sticking with me. This is the end of the 5th year of the podcast, and we'll talk again in January to begin year 6. And always remember,
it only happens once a month, so you must be on the dot.